Hi, I'm Matt Stanky from Go Brewing. We're brewers who specialize in non-alcoholic craft beer. We make all of our products in-house using traditional ingredients and brewing methods. Our award-winning lineup features over a dozen innovative and revenue-driving styles. As more people cut back, it's smart for small brewery owners to offer high-quality NA options. Do you want to add Go Brewing to your menu? Simply click the retailer app at the bottom of the page. We offer wholesale pricing and free shipping on orders over $200. With 2-day shipping, it could be on your menu this week. Thanks and enjoy the panel.
Hey, y'all, welcome to Crafting Talent on a Pint-Sized Budget. In today's competitive market, breweries can't really afford high turnover, underprepared leaders, or stagnant teams. But many professionals in our industry still believe that development means spending precious dollars in offsite training. This session aims to dismantle that myth and prove that impactful growth is possible for any brewery without blowing the budget. All right, y'all. So I am Kat Pierce. I am from Raleigh Brewing and ABS Commercial. I have experience in leadership with Pink Boot Society, in addition to managing teams cross-generationally, in addition to cross-departmentally within Raleigh Brewing and ABS Commercial and homebrew shops. With that said, I would like to introduce the rest of our panelists, or have the rest of our panelists introduce themselves. Ryan, why don't we start with you? And would you mind sharing briefly a little bit about yourself and what qualifies you to talk about this topic?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Kat. So my name is Ryan Mayfield. I'm with Craft Leadership, and we provide exactly what we're talking about right now, leadership development in the craft brewing space. And so I'm out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, but we've got clients and partners all over the country. I've been doing leadership development stuff in the corporate world since 2018. And we saw a huge gap in, the craft brewing space where a lot of attention and intentions put towards a good quality and a good environment, but definitely still a gap there as far as the leadership development space. And so excited to be here.
Thanks. Hey, Aaron, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, we're supposed to be qualified to speak on this? Well, glad I showed up anyways. Hey guys, Aaron Gore, Vice President Sales and Marketing for the fifth ingredient. Most of you just know us as Beer 30. Also the Vice President of the American Craft Beer Hall of Fame, Advanced Cicerone, Certified Cheese Scholar, which I swear is a real thing through the University of Wisconsin, and former consultant for the industry. Was fortunate enough to spend pretty much my entire adult life surrounded by knuckleheads like the folks we got on this call. So been very fortunate enough to teach, very fortunate enough to learn, and to have the advantage of having people invest in my own development and trying to pay that back forward over these last few years.
Awesome. All right, Chris, your turn.
Hello, how's it going? My name is Chris Guzman. I'm an advanced cicerone. Recently moved here to Charlotte, North Carolina since January. Been in the beer industry for over 10 years, from tour guide to behind the bar to I was actually a teacher at a community college developing a 16-week course about craft beer. Currently, I'm in sales, which is a whole different beast in the best way possible, and now educating offsite accounts, which I find just as valuable as educating the staff behind the bar, as I did over at Pure Project, AleSmith, Stone Brewing, and Mission Brewery. So thank you for having me on this call.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So let's go ahead and get started. My first question for everyone is, why do you think professional development often takes a back seat in breweries, and what is the cost of that neglect?
Oh, yeah. You ever try to do something really, really delicate and really, really important when your hair is literally on fire? Little hard to focus. Yeah, that's about what it's like running a brewery. I think most of the people watching this can probably agree. The one resource that you don't ever have enough of is time, and there's always going to be way too many hats, way too many tasks for you to be able to address at any given moment. And prioritization is not a skill that most people are taught. So for a lot of folks, it's not lack of intent. It's not even lack of understanding the importance thereof. It's purely a lack of feeling like you have the time, feeling like you have the ability to properly prioritize importance versus urgent in order to be able to do so.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, in my experience, many times professional development has taken a backseat just because a lack of time, lack of funds. But I mean, in the end, the cost of that neglect is directly affecting your business due to the insufficiencies or maybe just lack of knowledge that your staff might have. And when your staff doesn't have the knowledge to be able to present that to, either guests or other folks that they're speaking with, like beer buyers or whatever, that really shows. And ultimately, I don't think is a very good look for your brand. I mean, you want to make sure that your brand has a really strong presence in the industry, and especially considering how competitive it is now, you've got to get in front of that and make sure that your staff is knowledgeable about what they're talking about, and ensuring that the folks that they're speaking with also feel that way.
Yeah, just quickly piggyback off of that. One thing that I discovered when I was working out at Pure Project, who's been around at that time for 3 years, everyone who worked there knew each other, knew the beers. They knew the specialty releases from 2 years ago. And when I became the squid or the first person there in a long time, the new person, they were like, wait, you don't know about blank beer that released 2 years ago with dragon fruit? And one thing is, and I think this is where we see like the disconnect or the backseat, is we tend to forget to put ourselves in the new person role. We tend to at times not think, wait, we just hired someone for the first time in 6 months. Did we refresh our onboarding? And for me, that was one of the more critical things I did at Pure Project. I onboarded everyone else after me, and they felt adequate. I created a directory so that everyone knew what the beers were. That first step determines how far you go within the race. And this is the last thing I'll say, but like, not the last thing, duh. But take like a 20 feet, 100 feet aerial and look, okay, are we speaking too advanced and need to take a step back and put our shoe in our weakest, quote unquote, weakest link? And if you do, let's do a refresher. We'll talk about the strategies of get everyone up to the same pace and then everyone moving in harmony moving forward. So weakest link and then onboarding, I think, are some of the hardest things that we tend to forget or put in the backseat, if you will.
Yeah,
Ryan, you have anything to add?
Chris, I'd really be curious to hear even how you would define professional development. Ryan, you as well, because we're talking about professional development, but obviously that it can extend to a lot of different areas of the business. And Chris, as you're discovering, even to how your staff is prepared to speak to people outside the business.
Ryan, you jump in first.
Well, gosh, I'm trying to come up with something to say that one of you hasn't already said. Aaron, I was thinking exactly in the same lines as you as far as like the urgency, versus importance thing for the previous question. How to define it? I mean, I think, gosh, that's a tough question. How to define it? I think a lot of times it's skills that are maybe not apparent, like they're not obvious right up front, right? Because we're not talking about how to pour the right beer or in the right glass, or how to close at the end of a day. Like that's not the stuff we're talking about. We're really talking about the things that you don't always notice are lacking until it causes a problem, right? Like and so whether that is being able to communicate well with other team members or with patrons or with vendors or whatever it is, or being able to delegate, right? If you're the owner who feels like they're carrying everything because you just can't quite let it go, right? Like getting trained with delegation, with time management, with communication strategies, with all those different things. Those are all part of professional development. And don't always seem like a big deal until you don't have them. And then it's a real big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do appreciate that definition of professional development. I mean, for me, sometimes professional development is straight up asking like your employees, hey, what is it that you're passionate about? And where is it that you want to grow? Like, obviously I have these things that I want you to grow within, but it can be super simple or it could be complicated, but in the end, ultimately it's about growth, and it's about ensuring that the team can come together and be able to work cohesively with one another with the same knowledge set. What role does professional development play in staff retention, morale, but especially in a high turnover industry like beer?
Yeah, just jumping in because I can't shut up normally. No, I think this is an industry where upward mobility is oftentimes kind of constrained. It's a whole industry of small businesses, and a lot of times that's one of the reasons for the proliferation of so many breweries. Is for a lot of head brewers, that was the only opportunity they had to move up, was to become an owner operator. Same goes for almost every aspect of the business, though. That's not an uncommon dilemma all the way through sales, bar management, what have you. And for a lot of folks, they really feel constrained within the roles that they're at, and the only real way to move forward is to move out. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think we just approach it wrong as an industry. So I've said for a while that a good manager, and this is something that I try to take to heart, shouldn't be defined just by what the people who stay working for them are doing, but also by what the people who have left at other opportunities are able to go on and do. And that sounds like something that could have a negative impact on business. And I'm a person that at the end of the day, your first responsibility is to keep the lights on. Because if you can't keep the lights on, it doesn't matter how good of a person you are. You have a lot of people who are out of work now. So it needs to be something that makes sense for the business. But training somebody to go on to better opportunities in an industry this collaborative, this close-knit, where you're probably going to be dependent on other people at some point just to help your business through, that is a good business decision. And when you ask people about what's important to them and their future, and you start investing resources and helping prepare them for what's next, whether it's internal and you can find those opportunities, or whether that does wind up being external, that's going to keep them around for longer. That's going to increase their engagement. That improves their productivity. That improves their ability to find novel solutions and go above and beyond. And it also means that you're going to have somebody in your back corner when you do need something down the line, if they've gone on to do some great things across the industry, which is what you should hope for every member of your team.
It kind of goes back to the whole, train your employees well enough that they can leave, treat them well enough that they don't want to.
100%. 100%. Yeah, that's a much better way of saying what I just spent 3 minutes saying.
Facts. But yeah, just to jump in, when I worked at a brewery, it was all of us, and we're like, dude, this is a really talented roster because we hired super well. It was a very diverse roster, and then we all ended up becoming managers and directors of hospitality and director of sales for big distribution companies, and it was such a talented team. But one thing that you have to instill is the understanding of what they want to do in their next step, how to guide them. There's a ton of resources. And we have been in the industry for a while, so we have a ton of connections. Hey, let me connect you with this one person. I think you'd love to hear what they have to say. Also, one thing about any industry, whatever it may be, is the spotlight. Don't be afraid to share the spotlight. There were many sessions where they were like, Chris, you're the knowledgeable one. Go do this radio session. But I knew the confidence and how excited another teammate would have. So I brought them along and just alley-oop that ball. You don't have to be the shooter all the time, the basketball shooter. So don't be afraid to alley-oop. Know people's strengths, know people's weaknesses, and learn how to develop those and bring the best out of the people. I mean, we're in the industry for a short amount of time. Many say, oh, there's a ton of turnover. Might as well make the most out of it and have as much fun. Make the most out of someone's day and someone's time within your brewery.
Kat, you asked about the connection between professional development and turnover, retention stuff. The thought that came to mind for me immediately was if you're a brewery owner and you just desperately want to get rid of your best people, right? You can do that really efficiently by not leaning into professional development, right? Because what tends to happen, you don't want to do everything yourself. So you're going to put somebody in a manager role. And if that person's not prepared for it, if they have not been developed to the point of having that skill set, you lose two groups of people. One is you lose the people who are working for them, who are upset with their less than prepared manager, who they used to like when they were just a coworker. But then you also lose that manager eventually because they get burnt out and overtaxed because they're not prepared for it. Like literally just before this call, I was on a call with a different owner who just lost one of their main managers because he felt like he was up against the ceiling on his like ability to lead a team, and he was ready for a less stressful role. So now they're having to replace that middle manager right now. So I see it happen all the time.
It's also a situation where if they're not growing in that position, those folks might feel stuck. I definitely have felt that like that before, where, you know, I was searching and asking and requesting so often for opportunities to like learn more. And I would, you know, go off and do find it myself. And via going off and finding it myself, I ultimately also was networking and found other places to go as well. How do you identify skill gaps or leadership potential in your team when you don't have a formal HR department or training program?
Well, Ryan, I would love to hear from you, especially on this. But I was going to say one of the things that really resonated from what you answered on the last question is just that hazard of the Peter Principle. And if anyone's unfamiliar with the idea of the Peter Principle, it's the idea that someone will be promoted to the point of their own incompetence. And, you know, a lot of times what you see is people get promoted to the point where they no longer are developing, no longer moving forward. And a lot of times what that really is a failure of preparation ahead of that, sometimes on behalf of the employee, but just as often and more often actually on behalf of the organization for not recognizing that the skills that it takes at various levels are not necessarily linear and not necessarily the same. Managing people is a discrete skill set, and it often gets treated like if you're going to be great at sales, you should be great at managing sales. If you're great at brewing, you should be great at managing a brew team. And managing humans with all of our glorious, ridiculous, screwed up glory it is a very challenging skill set. It's a very unique skill set, and it's one that can be coached. It's one that most people can pick up, but it is something that you need to identify, you need to foster, and you need to develop a discipline around, not just an instinct for, if you're really going to step into that.
Yeah, man, Aaron, I just, every time I'm like listening to you talk, whether it was at a conference in person or right now, I'm just like, does this dude follow me around? Like, these are my talking points. What the heck?
Am I wired?
You notice?
Yeah, second time today, the Peter Principle has been brought up on a virtual call I've been on. But yeah, that's exactly right. And that is, you know, the unprepared or undeveloped manager is the biggest reason why someone leaves a role, like way bigger than not liking the job, any of that stuff. And you're exactly right. Like the skill sets are not the same. Most of the time when someone gets promoted into leadership, they get promoted not because they were good at leadership, but because they were good at something else, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're a great bartender. You're, you know, great at whatever it is, but managing a tap room is a whole lot different than, you know, pouring a beer and having good rapport with customers. Those are great qualities. But to go back to your question, Kat, about what does it look like? How do you identify that? That's it, right? You see some awesome skill sets. You have a valued team member who clearly has influence with everybody else. They want to get paid more. You want to pay them more. And to justify that, you want to put them in a management role. Okay, if there's ever a flashing neon sign, that's it, right? That's the person who you need to develop even more, which might be counterintuitive. People might think like, no, this person's killing it. These other people need development. And the reality is that person is your force multiplier. If you pour your development into that person, they have the influence with the rest of your team and can become that great manager that, like I said, is a force multiplier to everybody else. So lean in, develop your star people. That's what I would say.
Nice. My next question is interesting because obviously there's Ryan who specifically speaks to craft leadership, which is the name of his business and his organization. But
good branding.
Great name.
But my curiosity is, what actions or attitudes help get the momentum of a culture of learning moving?
Yeah, Chris, this is one where I feel like at Pilot Project, you really created an attitude where everybody was approaching education, especially on the beer side, as part of their job, which is a very hard thing to get people to do and get them excited about it. And even talking to some of the other people from Pure Project in particular, like they all reference back and all refer to just how much you're able to make that an integral part of the culture. I'd love to hear a little about your thoughts on how that functioned, how that built.
Yeah, totally. So beer industry is about beer. That's the first part. It feels like ages ago. And how do you build a culture? How do you build a momentum? And I said this from the very beginning. It's like you just have to put yourself in people's shoes. There's two things. You have to truly believe that your tap room is an undiluted experience that you want to create. If you don't believe that your tap room is where people experience your beer the way you want it to, then your tap room is simply just a supermarket with tap handles, which shout out to North Carolina. That shit's pretty cool. And it has half off beers on Thursdays. And it's cheaper. So like, why would you even go to the tap room? So truly believe that's you're creating that experience. How do you create experience? Every single team member that's front facing should know these beers like the back of the hand. You want to go to a restaurant and you don't want the server to just be like, honestly, I have no clue. That I've never heard of this dish. And you're like, how do you not know this dish when it's your appetizer at your restaurant? I've seen that done before with breweries where you're just like, you don't know this beer? And they're like, no one tells me anything about this. And you're both really awkward. So really it's a group effort. It's always top down. If you don't have top down, it doesn't go anywhere. So sit down and have an honest opinion. Like, hey, do we want to start making this tap room profitable? Do we want people to stay? Do you want upselling? Do you want beers to go? And then you just start from the base level. You do a strategic shadow brew, team effort, break it up, different departments, bring everyone together. You bring in your vendors, malt suppliers, hop suppliers. They're excited to talk about beers. We're in 2025. A lot of things are virtual. So you could actually connect all 5 of your tap rooms virtually, have those beers in front of them delivered, and you're doing a tasting. You don't all have to say, well, how do I get 60 miles north? That's extremely important. It just takes effort. It's a relationship. You constantly have to challenge yourself. What are our goals and how do we work together? I built something at Pure Project where if you go on Yelp, there's over 500 comments that say knowledgeable or knowledge. Every single staff member was the best of the best. And I would put them toe to toe with 10,000 breweries here in the United States. But yeah, it was never about me. It was about us, and it was about raising the whole team. But it's communication, it's foundation, and then you build on top of those.
I think another thing too that a lot of people don't realize, you were talking, Chris, about top down, right? I think for me, one of the things that has really helped create a culture of learning in the businesses that I have managed is wanting to be a lifelong learner myself. If you see that ownership or management are also actively seeking out professional development and or learning and or feedback and just doing the best that they can to constantly be, getting better, I think that in and of itself also creates a culture of learning. I have a friend who actually owns a tap room in Durham called Beer Tooth Tap Room. And she's a certified Cicerone and is very, very passionate about beer and very passionate about teaching others about beer. I wouldn't have my certified Cicerone without her. And one of the things that she does is she requires every one of her bartenders to go get Cicerone beer server certified. And I think that, that is a great thing. But what she does more specific to that is that she actually trains them and gives them the resources that they need in order to become successful for that. And the majority of the resources that she has are resources that can be reused, different literature, different texts, but also the specific experience of bartending with them to be able to then taste beers and talk to the sales reps from the different breweries that walk in to sell the beer and all of that jazz. She creates a culture of learning because she herself is also a lifelong learner.
Well, and I think it's important to do exactly what both you, Kat, and you, Chris, have referenced, is understand that learning is an element of the culture. Development, professional development across the board, whether it's beer, leadership, any aspect thereof, business, is part of the culture. And it is something that you have to drive, because culture can be emergent, but culture is also something that does need to be driven. And the onus is on you as a leader, as an owner, as an operator, to continue to drive that. Like, I'm a parent. I got two girls at home, 6 and 3. This is something you can even see in that environment. Even your family's culture is something that you really do have to drive. Family traditions, things that you reinforce, things that you focus on making sure are repeatable. But it is also emergent. My 6-year-old, whoever invented Elf on the Shelf is the most brilliant marketing person on earth. It's the stupidest freaking idea, because if you don't do it, all your friends' kids are going to ruin it for your kid. It's just a nightmare. But my 6-year-old got so into Elf on the Shelf that she started actually wanting to participate in it once her sister got old enough. And now she wants to do Elf on the Shelf in Christmas in July. We even have one for Easter, a little bunny that pops out and sits and watches us. So it's a whole thing that she's into. And now it's just a part of our family. But if we didn't drive that initially, if we didn't support that, if we didn't reinforce, and if we didn't continue to work towards building that into something special, then it's not there. The same exact thing goes for your business, and you really do have to provide opportunities and incentives, and also make people comfortable in not knowing, so that they feel comfortable engaging with that material and engaging with the need to learn.
Yes.
Yeah, just jumping on the train a little bit as far as like the owner investment, right? Like, sometimes people ask me like, who's a good client that you're looking for, and one of the things that, like, I can't work with somebody if the top dogs are not bought in, right? Not only like do they want it, but are they willing to make time and have capacity for it, right? Because you guys are exactly right. If you're trying to implement something and the owner isn't showing up, or showing up late, or sneaking out early, that signals to everybody, this not important, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're throwing away what little money you don't already have, right, by not doing that. So you have to have that. And then on top of that, I think the thing that really pushes it down and gets true buy-in from everybody else is, once an owner, or whoever the champion of it is, starts applying it themselves inside and outside of the business, I think the best leadership development makes people's lives better. Not just their work, but like at home, and their family and their friends and their community. And when that's happening and you're sharing about that inside your tap room, inside your kitchen, right, on breaks, whatever, like, that's something that people can get excited about. And for owners, I think the best owners want the best for their team members, right? Not just in the tap room, but in their lives, right? You want people to be healthy holistically outside of the tap room, and then they're able to bring their best to you every single day. And so whenever development gets to that level, where it's not just making you a better server, or better employee, but a healthier individual holistically, man, that's something that people can get excited about, right?
What a valid concept.
It's novel, I know. I just came up with it. Yeah.
So, we've talked a lot about like developing a culture and why professional development is important. But the name of this session is called Crafting Talent on a Pint-Sized Budget. So with that said, what are some low cost or free tools that your team has used successfully for staff development, and how did you implement them?
Man, I'll tell you, the value of an open library, one Excel spreadsheet. Every brewer I know has 100 freaking books. More owners than you'd realize read a decent number of business books, and they should. There's some really good content out there. But encourage people to do costless learning. And not all of us have the money to throw towards getting every member of our team to the level of advanced Cicerone. Not everybody has the money to spend on professional development programs, but there are people like Ryan who are providing extremely affordable services that can still help you learn how to teach your team how to fish. And can really level up your entire organization. There's books out there that you probably already have access to, resources you already have access to. Startabrewery.com. Anybody who's never been on Start a Brewery, good Lord, there's so many resources. It doesn't matter if you're starting a brewery. Just get on there. There's so much stuff related to every aspect of the business, and it's all free. Hop on there, use it. Join communities like CPP. These are opportunity. Yeah, cheap plug, Andrew. You owe me one. But
Join Pink Boots Society. What a valid concept.
Pink Boots Society. These are opportunities for learning that, for the most part, cost little or nothing. But those resources, without structure, are only going to get you so far. You do need to have some structure, and you do need to have some intent behind it as well if you really want to maximize what you're getting out of it. Chris, I know that structure side is something that you've spent a long time building as well. And Ryan, I know that's part of your curriculum. I don't want you giving away the whole cow, but would love to hear detail by detail your entire course that you usually give people right on here for free, please.
Yeah, sure.
This will be like the most expensive session ever. Andrew's gonna be like, I'm gonna profit hard on this. Just kidding.
First ever password protected panel fest video.
Exactly. Yeah, there are extremely valuable books. Tasting Beer by Randy Mosher, an iconic cornerstone within any education. I think the most difficult part that we have the whole world in our pockets. We're actually on the internet right now. There's all the information in the world, and I think a lot of top-down looks and says, well, it's all there. Just do it. But it's how do you deliver? Kat used to be a educator herself. How do you learn? How do you constantly challenge yourself on the way people learn is extremely important. What is also applicable, I should say. I remember chatting with my buddy, Advanced Cicerone. He's like one of 3 in Mexico. Castro. I forget his first name, but he's a great friend of mine. And I was actually just quickly looking at our emails, and 2016, 2017, we were talking about beer education. And one thing that we were talking about is like, I want to talk about these Belgian beers. And one big thing I said is, do you make Belgian beers? And it's like, no, but I think those are really important. And it's what is applicable, and then start going outside so they become more of a well-rounded beer professional. But focus on what y'all are doing, and then make it digestible, make it easy to find. It should be printed. It should be bookmarked. It should be on your messaging. You should be able to say, hey, toss an emoji so that I know that you have seen it. Ask and talk about it. These are things that we do as parents, as educators, do the same thing, and that's how you build the culture. I took a lot of inspiration from Cicerone, and I still think Cicerone could do more. During 2020, when we were doing the tasting together sessions, that inspired me to do that. We were in 2 different tap rooms, 30 minutes away, virtual call, and I actually told my staff, hey, we're going to pay for your time. You're going to lead us through these Belgian beers. You choose which style excites you. We'll go to a local bottle shop. All the sets will be there. You'll also try the beers. You'll talk about the beers. You're empowering your employees. And what was mentioned is you have to see top down visually. The owners were at those, and you're like, whoa, you set time to learn about these Belgian beers by your staff. How cool is that? So make things digestible, make it easy to find, and keep the conversation going. But start with what's applicable to their day-to-day job. And then you could really explore the funky, weird beers of Lambic or whatever it may be.
I absolutely love that. Far too often we try to make everybody, it's the everything bagel problem. Or I don't know if anybody's familiar with the idea of Sturgeon's Law. It's the idea that 90% of everything is crap. And 90% of everything isn't crap in this case, but 90% of everything may not be relevant. And the way you have to engage with info doing sales versus the way you have to engage with info in the tap room versus the way you have to engage with info as a brewer. These are very fundamentally different information sets, but even viewpoints and the way you have to engage with that, the way you have to learn it, the things you need to know are going to be fundamentally different between each of those. So make sure that you're matching the content to the audience. And that includes even if you're the audience, if you're trying to teach yourself, focus on the things that are most important to you first, to Chris's point. But Ryan, how do you build some structure around teaching people the leadership side of things as well? I feel like that has to be a challenge to get people invested in something that may not be as close to the passion, close to the core of why they got into this, like the beer itself is.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do my very best to not turn this into an infomercial right now, but it's real hard.
But wait, there's more.
But yeah, no, I'll say just to answer that specific question that you're talking about, I think you already said it. Like, it has to be stuff that's applicable, that's practical, that's not theory, right? I know you say like there's a lot of owners that probably read more books and get into more stuff than what you would think, which I don't doubt. But at the same time, yeah, they've got 47 other things that they got to do right now, right? And so if it's not practical, if there's not a really quick ROI on it, man, you're pushing that boulder uphill. So I think that's the biggest thing, is it has to be immediately applicable. As far as how we do it, now I know we're talking about on a budget, but just to be clear, if you got barrels full of cash, I'm willing, throw those my way. But assuming that's not the case, there's definitely lots of good options out there. And one thing I would just tell owners to make sure they're considering is also time value of money. I say that because I know the temptation for a lot of businesses that are, running thin margins, a little bit more cash strapped. They go, okay, I'll just handle it myself. Once a month, I'm going to lead a session on leadership for my team. And then what they do is they read a book, or they try to read a book. They listen to a podcast. They pull up, they research, find some articles with good intentions. And the first meeting's great, and the second one is good, and the third one is okay, and the fourth one gets postponed, and the fifth one never gets rescheduled. Right?
It's like lunch and learns.
Yes, exactly. And it's great intentions, but you already are doing so much. And so maybe you do need to spend a couple $100 to outsource that. Again, trying real hard not to be salesy right now. But is your time worth more than that? I think it is, because 99% of the things that you do for your brewery, I'm not capable of doing, right? That's the 1% that there are people like me who can help with that and get that off your plate. So we have, low cost, couple $100 options here and there for things like that. But the thing I'll focus on here is we have a really cool resource library that's 100% free, that is not just, random articles or whatever we're building. What I do a lot when I go to tap rooms, or like at a recent CBP event, like every person I talk to, I was asking the same couple of questions. What are the biggest people problems you're having? What's the challenges that you're facing with leading a team of people? Even before the conference started, I was at a tap room across the street talking to the tap room manager, going, hey, what's been the challenge coming into this role? And so the resources in our library are created from those exact conversations. I sat at a table with somebody at CBP. He told me what they were struggling with, and the next day I had created an article for him based on his exact problem. So what I would say is go check that out. It's on Substack is where we keep it. So it's craftleadership.substack.com. If your problem's not on there, literally just send me a message about it. I'll create a resource for your exact, people related problem. And that stuff's all there for anybody who wants it.
Parenting a strong-willed 6-year-old. Go.
I'll do it.
So, go ahead, Chris.
Jump in with another tool, which low cost in itself. It's relative. Off flavor classes, off flavor courses. There are great books. There's a ton of YouTube videos. You could do your Aroxa. You could do the Siebel Institute spikes. Get some macro loggers.
You can also make your own.
You can also
There
make
are
your
ways
own.
to make your own.
You won't be reinventing the wheel, but what you will do is create a common lexicon. So let's say if you're you're pouring beers, it's 8 p.m., you just put on a new keg, and you're like, there's something weird with this. This will help guide them in the right direction. Like, whoa, this is oxidized. We talked about this one. This is whatever it may be, flavor compound that's not supposed to be in this beer. So those will give you a lot of peace of mind. It speeds up the problem solving. It helps talk with brewers. Brewers won't be like, oh, that bartender and salesperson's so inadequate. They don't know what they're talking about. You will empower many more people. And that may cost less than $100, probably even less than that. So just keep that in mind.
If you come across with, like, for another thing too is off flavors, they're very easy to come across in the wild. If a brewer is, tasting a fermenter to see, not the actual fermenter, the beer inside the fermenter, but anyway, for diacetyl, and they're like, oh yeah, no, this isn't ready yet, but you know what? Here's a cup of diacetyl. Let the rest of my staff taste it. It's one of those situations where, as you come up with it, or as you come across it, invite other people to be like, hey, you want to taste this really bad beer? Let me talk to you about it.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about mentorship programs, either formal or informal. I know that I have had a couple of mentees before, mentees, yes, but I've also been a mentee myself. That being said, a lot of that was through Pink Boot Society and also just via being a employee or the manager. What other mentorship programs are there out there, and can you guys speak to that?
Yeah, I'd like to say that the Brewers Association's mentorship program is fantastic, but now it's a bit of a rest in peace scenario. They are deprecating that program. Unfortunately, I was one of the mentors with that. Real shame. There was some fantastic work that happened there, and to echo you, Kat, the Pink Boots Society has always been fantastic about setting up mentorships for women and non-binary folks from across the industry.
LaShonda Gant actually is creating a whole mentorship program, like an actual one for Pink Boots. So that'll be released very soon.
Love you, Shonda. But I will say one thing, like full formalized mentorship programs are valuable, but the biggest thing they bring to the table isn't the program, it's the regular cadence and the sense of reinforcement. And that is something that you're able to replicate even without being part of a program. If you have someone whose work you admire, this is a collaborative industry. People want to help. And for the most part, if you ask, people will be willing to give some of their time, give some of their background. And one of the chief things a mentor can do as well is to tell you what they don't know. That's incredibly valuable, is being able to even learn some of the limitations and some of the ways to adapt to not knowing and some of the ways to find solutions. For me personally, that was one of the most transformative moments of my career, was having someone approach me for the first time about being a mentor for them. At this point, I think I've had 5 long-term mentees, as well as a couple of short-term ones. And that's been, I have learned more from them than they have from me, which I'm sure is not the best recommendation for finding yourself a mentor, but it is incredible how much you're able to teach each other, how much you're able to learn about yourself by teaching others, and how much it's able to help introduce people who have enormous skills, enormous talent, enormous passion into the industry, who otherwise would be languishing without feeling like they had a sense of guidance or a sense of direction. That was me for a very long time. I felt like I was just kind of bouncing from role to role and from day to day. And sometimes you just need to have somebody who's able to give you a little bit more of a framework and help answer some of the questions that the answers are easily knowable and probably even already gained through experience. Use that opportunity to get a leg up. use that opportunity to not start from zero. But there's absolutely no shame in that. That's an amazing thing. That's a beautiful privilege and a beautiful opportunity for both parties.
I would say, just kind of on the more informal side of mentorship, just a few of the things I feel like I've learned along the way is, I think one of the big ones, like a misconception, is to have somebody mentor you, like they need to have everything together, right? They need to have it all figured out. In reality, I think people like that are pretty few and far between, and so you're gonna struggle to find someone like that. And so I'm a fan of having multiple mentors in your life for different things, right? Like you respect the way that this person does this thing, right? And then there's this person who's a master of marketing, and that, like, and so you can kind of diversify your mentor portfolio, right?
It's like a personal board of directors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the difference between mentorship and guruship. If you're
Yes.
expecting everyone to know absolutely everything and guide you on everything, that person doesn't exist. That means you're either getting bad information, or you're with somebody who's taking advantage of the fact that you think they're giving you good information.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of people too who maybe don't feel like they have time or even the credibility to be a mentor. So like I've seen where people, if you approach somebody and go, "Hey, will you mentor me?" Like, a lot of people are like, I don't think that's a good, but I bet for most people I could buy them lunch and ask them some questions, right?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty cheap, mentoring session, right? If I'm going to buy somebody lunch, especially if it's somebody that I really want to learn from the way they handle this specific thing, I think that's a great start to those relationships.
Chris, do you have anything to say?
Totally. I'm going to give a shout out to the OG mentorship, which is BJCP. So back in the day, we used to homebrew, and there'd be homebrew competitions, and everyone, a good organizer, would have a grandmaster or master BJCP judge who's been doing this older than you've been drinking beer, and you're sitting there as a novice trying a flight of European lagers, and they say, well, it has noble hop characteristic, and you're like, what's noble hop characteristic? And you just start learning, and that was one of the, and not everyone knows what BJCP is, and being in the industry 3-4 years, I went into AleSmith, and AleSmith has one of the highest ranked BJCP judges. And he was like, how do you not know BJCP? And I was so Cicerone heavy that I was like, I don't know. But just know that there is a community out there. Tap into your local homebrew club. Even if you don't homebrew, there's a lot of panels, presentations. It's low budget, and you might actually have like I've done it where like it's like, oh, that's Vinny of Russian River. How cool, he's talking about this, or Kelsey McNair with North Park Beer Co. There are so many avenues to learn. I think helping other people know where those avenues are is extremely important. I remember the time when someone said, hey, tasting beer is a book. And I was like, what? I've been on Beer Advocate magazines, and that's the way I learned. And there are so many avenues. Be a great beer professional and shine a light on those different avenues. Whether it worked for you or not, many people would find that to be extremely valuable and priceless.
I love the homebrew recommendation too, Chris. I do feel like as the industry's become more professionalized, sometimes we do forget about that. And I say as someone who doesn't homebrew, but they're always happy to have you in to learn and to converse. And we were talking about off flavors earlier. You want to have some of the worst and some of the best beer you'll ever have, homebrew clubs. And I don't mean that as a criticism, because a lot of these are amateur people looking to learn, looking to develop. So if you want to refine that sense of critical analysis, critical in the sense of improvement, of being able to provide feedback, of being able to describe what you're experiencing so that people can make the best homebrew you've ever had down the line. It's a fantastic place to do that. And most of the people in the homebrew community, they want that feedback. That's part of why they're there. And they would welcome, as long as it's delivered without you being an asshole, welcome some of the feedback and some of the opportunity to improve what they're making at home. And some of those folks are making really good beer too. So some of that stuff is really well worth drinking on its own.
Well, coming from the previous GM of Atlantic Brew Supply, I am still a part of a homebrew club and can confirm everything that was just said. With that said, y'all, we have about 10 minutes left, maybe a little over. So, Aaron, you're going to have to shorten your answers here or give other people opportunities to speak.
Yeah, that's fair.
So how do we measure success when it comes to professional development, especially when it's informal or low cost?
I think you have to set expectations and goals for what you're trying to accomplish. Not everything has to be some sort of formal test, but you do need to have some level of applicability and some level of learning objectives going into it. Those can be formalized. They don't have to be, although I personally am a fan of writing things down if you intend to hold to them. It's even if it's not something that you have any sort of penalties or anything behind, it just helps keep everybody on the same page, give you something to reference. But set some learning objectives, know what you want to accomplish, know why you want people to learn that in particular. This goes back to Chris's conversation on relevance earlier. And then use that as your North Star. Use that as your benchmark for whether or not you've actually reached your destination.
Make it attainable and measurable. I am a big believer in that, especially as a previous educator.
Yeah, I would just say I'm a fan of putting those things in writing or having some sort of metrics that you track. Of course, you can do that in a more professionalized way. We do some like internal assessments and surveys to track some things. But even if you don't do it through someone like us, it's not, I mean, you can make a Google form, right? And ask some questions about culture, about leadership, about communication, about breakdowns, and have everybody take that once a quarter, right? Just to measure progress in some things and use that to plan goals for the next quarter. So I'm a big fan of kind of the data-driven metrics. It's a way to make it tangible. And so I definitely advise that.
And you can do tests without making it punitive, by the way. Like, you can make it where people are testing and it's clear that even if they fail the test, it's not about failure. It's about understanding that maybe your system needs to improve and maybe the way it's being taught needs to improve. One of my favorite recommendations book-wise, if anyone's ever read Black Box Thinking by Matthew Syed, that's one of the most transformative books, in my opinion, ever put to ink. The entire idea is that blame culture a lot of times leads to people being scared to make mistakes, hiding their mistakes, and a lot of times being fearful of punitive measures if the system itself was the reason they failed. So make sure you're setting people up to deliver honest feedback and demonstrate their learning, but in a way that doesn't make them feel like their job's at stake if there's a possibility that the actual way you're teaching it could be improved for the future.
Yeah. How do you measure? I think it's all about the culture, and then it's palpable. You could feel it. I remember no one knew how to describe a beer, literally no way of saying stone fruit or even pine. It's good. It's good. And it's sold.
Hoppy.
And it's hoppy. And not even that. Like, it was so crazy. Like, we were so hype that you only had to say, it's my favorite. And bucket, I'll have four packs of it. It was so cool. And now it's really competitive. But one way to measure success of a professional development, one of my favorite moments, and we did this often, was we would have the entire staff, front of the house staff, come in, and we would have this really engaging how do you upsell or different strategies that we would have. And it was such a professional, like there's so much thought in it. And I think people think tap rooms are successful because they magically happened. No, you could have an extremely successful tap room by being very strategic, by asking, hey, what are you missing? And, oh, well, we don't understand these barrel-aged sours. Hey, let's sit down. Or we don't know how to relate these two beers together. Those are beautiful concepts. The layout of your merchandise, the way the tap room is set up, the way the beer list is set up. I think that's when I discovered that this was a success, was when everyone in the room was talking and it wasn't just me.
People started giving a shit.
People started giving a shit. It's extremely important. Give a shit. Yelp is extremely important. I mentioned it. I think there's like 500. Look it up. Just knowledgeable on Yelp and any pure project. staff is knowledgeable. That is also an indicator. And then you also praise that, like, hey, thank you so much for great customer service. Thank you for knowing your stuff. Like, constant reward is extremely important. But yeah, that's success in my opinion. Not everyone's going to want to become a cicerone, and that's totally fine. As long as we work it together and we do some really cool stuff, let's make it happen.
I love that. So if the industry embraced more accessible development practices, what do you think the next 5 years could look like for craft beer talent and leadership?
Oh man, if you want to get us back to the growth trajectory, and we'll never get quite back to the growth trajectory, come see my talk on riding the wave and how the adoption curve applies to craft beer. If you want to see craft beer really start to make gains again, one of the chief things we have to understand is a well-educated staff, not just educated on beer, but educated on beer, is critical. But being able to take that knowledge and apply it in ways that are useful for their job. One of the things that early on marked me out, the heterodox in the beer education front. These days, I think it's kind of aligned again. But the idea that you know about beer to be able to allow customers to not have to know that much about beer and still have the best experience possible. You become a cicerone so that they can be somebody who engages with beer at whatever level they are interested. And in general, people having good experiences will seek out more knowledge and they will seek to learn more eventually. But there's people who are never going to care as much about beer as we do, and they still need to have just as good an experience and just as good a time at your facility. The more your staff understands your portfolio, they understand hospitality, they understand what you're trying to accomplish, and everyone's aligned in their goals and aligned in their messaging. That helps you lead that horse to water and make sure that that customer every single time, whether that's a retail customer on the sales side, whether that's a consumer in your tap room, is having the best possible experience. That's how we reconnect people back with craft beer. Not going down the rabbit hole of just trying to get everybody to match that same level of credentialism, the same level of formal education and interest that, you know, a Chris or a Kat or myself may have.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, leadership and owning a business and all that is challenging already. And then we're talking about the craft beer industry, which we all know is extremely predictable and not volatile or anything right now. And you know what? Leadership's not terribly difficult when everything is going exactly how you want it to go. The problem is that's just not the reality that any of us live in, right? And so my prediction, not to be too doom and gloom, right, is that I think there's a lot of breweries who are going to either survive or not based on the health of the people leading it. And the healthier they are and the more developed they are, the greater their capacity to respond when things don't go exactly how they want, right? And also just to the rising complexity that's needed to keep afloat in that industry, right? I know one of the trends I've seen, if you're just selling beer, right? Like Chris is talking about, there's supermarkets that do that, right? You're not going to survive if all you're doing is selling beer, which means that your whole operation has to get more and more complex. And as stressed out as you were when it was simple, you got to up your game in order to handle it the more complex it gets. And so have I made it clear? I think it's important.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. The speed round. What is one thing that breweries can do to take tomorrow to begin developing a learning development culture?
Craft leadership on Substack. That's what I'll say.
Dang it! I was going to jump in there.
Hey, you can say it. That's fine.
Craft leadership on Substack. The way you communicate is extremely important. Have a message, whether it's Slack, Microsoft, those are extremely vital. Don't send text messages and then expect them to know what that one chain from 2 months ago where they can't find it. That is probably the most important piece is communication. And then have a printer, print out what you find to be valuable and have people check off on it. It's that simple.
I would definitely say start developing a digital and physical library of resources that staff can pull at any time, especially during slow times.
Yeah. Trust but accountability. So, make sure you give people the opportunity to learn at their pace, learn the things that are relevant to them and important to them, but give them the opportunity to show that learning and to show the effort being made. That way you can best help them, not to punish, not to agitate, but to give them the opportunity to learn better.
I'm also going to say one more thing. Encourage your staff to actually be a part of organizations, especially women and non-binary individuals, into Pink Boots Society. Pink Boots Society provides free professional development. So go do the damn thing.
And if you want to be of the talk and talk the talk, you could also reimburse their Pink Boots membership fee. I think that's super important. 2 of the previous breweries that I used to work for did that and kept applauding and host Pink Boots events. Use your brewery as a platform, as a common space. Bring people in, diversify who comes and drinks your beer. Don't talk down to people, and you're gonna have some fun. Safe to say.
All right, cheers, Chris. Enjoy your meeting.
Go bye, y'all. This was awesome, by the way.
All right, y'all. Thank you again for joining us for Crafting Talent on a Pint-Sized Budget. This is Kat. That was Chris. And this is Aaron and Ryan.